Hey Chris, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you very much.
Good. For audience purposes, when I first logged on and was connecting to Chris via Zoom, it was just so he was so chatty. He was just so warm and lovely. So I'm personally really excited for this because I don't know where these conversations are going to go because we already started talking about Starbucks coffee and everything. So just tell us what have you done with your Starbucks coffee? So you've taken the big mug of the Starbucks coffee.
Well, let's just be really clear. I stole one of their really big mugs because they're huge. And listen, when someone, offers me a coffee in the morning, I'm tired. I'm old. I feel like I don't want these little crappy little tiny cups. They're just going to sort of half wake me up. So I stole one of those big pints of Starbucks and thought that it's what I needed in my life because, I just can't half-ass it. I need to wake up fast. That's
I
just
know, but
basically
I
that's it.
think people can relate to you though, because I think many people have stolen the Starbucks. It's like the Soho House that people steal the towels from Soho House and like the brushes and stuff. Like people just steal this stuff.
Well, I don't go to Soho House, so I don't really know. I'm not that fancy, but I do go to Starbucks, and I do put their mugs in my hand luggage, and I run away very fast. But don't tell anyone.
I won't. I won't. Context is I love this thing because I used to work at Starbucks as it for like 4 years, and so I did also steal some of the mugs and stuff. And we do have some of the mugs in my cupboard, and so I just think it's a everyone has done it though. I've even seen it while working. People like clean the cups out and like put like tissues in, and then they just put it in the bag. And I've seen it actively, and I just don't say anything. I'm just like, if you that's a bold move. Just keep going.
I literally did that. That's exactly what I did. I cleaned it and I stole it, and as long as they don't sue us and hear this, it's all good.
Oh dear. Oh my God. Yeah. So whereabouts are you in the world at the moment? Because obviously we have COVID and I've been talking to a lot of people around the world and I think they're like based in like New York at the moment. They're like, oh no, I'm in Ireland or they're being like, oh, I'm in Australia at the moment. I'm like, oh, amazing. So whereabouts are you at the moment with the pandemic going on?
Well, pandemic or not, I always run back to Ireland after work to do post production and to hide because I lived in London for 9 years, and
Mm,
obviously you've lived in London, so you know that existing there is kind of just stressful, even if you're not doing something.
yeah.
So I came back here, and it's brilliant. It's peace, it's space, it's a lot of reality, which is a great balance.
Mm,
So right now
mm,
I'm in
mm.
Belfast, good Northern Irish boy. There's no pretense up here. We just work hard and avoid the rain.
So I've been to Belfast before. There's a theatre there which I performed when I was like 14. I think it's a theatre. I
Yeah,
think I
lyric is it?
Yeah, the Lyric Theatre. I performed there for
Yeah.
National Youth Music Theatre, I think it was, or Youth Music Theatre. I can't remember. No, yeah, maybe I can't remember. It was years and years and years ago when I was an acting child. But I loved it. I loved it. It was I was there for 2 weeks. Haven't been back since. But I really enjoyed it.
You loved it so much. You stayed
I
away for
loved,
ages. Good for you.
I know, I know. So what was your experience then in London for those 9 years? And then when did you come to the conclusion that it was like, okay, I need to move back to Ireland and do my career from here and then jump into London? Because a lot of people before COVID was like, I need to be in London. That's where it's happening. Like in New York, like LA.
Well, I think the people that come out with that are a lot of people that are they're trying to say this in a really positive way. When people are trying to be trendy and be in with a cool group, they feel like they have to be in the right city. I'm antisocial and I don't go to those parties and I don't kiss ass, so it never was a problem for me in the sense that um, it's better. It's put it this way: it's better if I stay away from those things and people have a bit of mystery than the boring reality of just a geek that loves the camera. So what I did, the bigger reason for it was I guess burnout. I mean, essentially, I'd worked so solidly for 9 years that I had like about 2 months worth of memories for it, and that didn't feel like that was healthy. It was just a
Mm,
blur, and I was at one point it was amazing, but I felt like I had done everything that I could do, and
mm,
I was saving away for this basement apartment with like one window, and it was like, what is this? This is not a quality of life. And when you're working that back to back, you don't have time to see new things or to feel anything. And as an
mm,
artist, that sounds a bit pretentious, artist with a small a, with someone that creates things, you need to be seeing things and experiencing something different other than, the Northern Line and
mm, mm,
Fury,
mm.
basically.
Yeah.
So
Because was that when you were there? I'm assuming that was when you were assisting as a creative assistant.
Yeah, but I assisted quite late in life. Like I was 30 when I started that. So I mean, there's a whole situation
No
before that. Yeah.
way. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God. Okay, let's go back then. So where did it all start from? Because I was doing a bit of research as well, and I found out that you graduated from acting school as well.
Yeah, that's not even the beginning. That's 26 years old. If you want to go back to the beginning, I was
Oh,
uh, basically, I mean, I don't know how boring this is, so interrupt me if it's
no,
absolutely
no,
kind
I'm
of coma.
fascinated.
Well, basically, you listen, you know those kids that are completely allergic to hanging out with other people. I would stay in every weekend and I would paint and I would draw and I would obsess and make things all the time. So I was a
Uh,
really great art student at school, in the sense that that's all I did. And then I went to art college, obviously, like
mhm,
everybody does, because we
mhm.
don't know what we want at the beginning. And I got really annoyed at it. I got really angry. They were always telling me what to do. And I was like, I don't really think art is about that. You know, I understand the lessons, I understand the guidance, but I don't think you should hold someone back. And they were constantly sort of putting boundaries on me, and I got really angry with it. And they said, you know, you're a bit too, what's the word, subversive for this. And I was like, is that a way of saying I'm a bit of a dick? Like, I don't really know. And they said, listen, if you think you can do better, go. And so I literally walked out. I didn't finish my degree. I quit. And
Wow.
I started assisting in film in Northern Ireland because I don't think it was money related. I think it was just like I wanted to be on a set,
Hmm, hmm.
bottom line, you know, because it seemed very glamorous, it seemed very teamworky, and it seemed like what I wanted. So I assisted on some feature films in Northern Ireland when it was just starting, and did that for about 2 years. And then what happened? Oh yeah, basically I met Gillian Anderson, the actress,
Yes.
um, at a, not name dropping, just part of the story. Like for real, she's a huge weird influence in the middle of all this. I met her at
Hmm.
a concert, and I was like, I really want to be an actor one day. You know, this awkward teenager, and she's like, oh, you should really do it. And she kept in touch, and then she came to Belfast to do a movie, and she was like, well, did you go to drama school? And I was like, no way. Like, there's 5,000 people applying. I'm never going to get it. And she sort of pushed me to do it. So I auditioned for theater school. It wasn't like
Hmm.
musical theater. It wasn't like singing
No.
Chicago and doing high kicks. It was like no shade to people that do that, but I'm not that elegant.
I
So it
really,
was more like,
I could really tell you putting a bowler hat on is doing the Chicago thing.
well, I mean, I'm sassy, but I don't know how good it looks. But basically, yeah, we did at the National Theatre School. I did the audition and I got in first go. And you know, she sent me a lovely note. And when you're a kid, who's like, she's sort of my hero. So I was like, this meant the world to me. So I put my little note from her on my wall, and I got up at 4 a.m. every day, went to the gym, and did this course for 3 or 4 years. And it was Shakespeare, it was boring, it was everything. It was like theater performance, it was
Uh-huh.
avant-garde, it was modern dance, it was expressionist, it was everything you could think of.
Hmm.
Um, but then at the same time, I didn't fit in there. I didn't like it because I'd be given, the director would be telling me exactly what to do.
Mm.
So I was in the same situation I was in art school, where I was like, oh great, I thought I had the, you know, the stage to myself and I could express myself. And no, this
Mm-hmm.
this person in the this person in the dark is pulling the strings, and I didn't really love that. So I basically worked all those years and did one play in London, and Gillian Anderson came in the opening night, blew my
Nice.
mind. Yeah, very nice. But my producer came up, knocked the door, and was like, Gillian Anderson's here. And everyone's like, white as a ghost, freaking out because she's amazing and
Yeah,
famous.
yeah.
And I was like, why are you telling me this before the show? I'm going to throw up on stage. This is terrifying. So I did that. Very exciting. But I feel like I fulfilled the dream so quickly. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like I did the show. I got to meet her and do it for her.
Hmm.
And during that period, I was in London, and I'd made a collection of clothes with my best friend, just from sheer boredom, because leading up to that stage of going to London to do the show, I was stuck in Ireland for a year, back at
Hmm.
home, and we made clothes just to entertain ourselves, to go out at clubs at night. Now, I don't mean like, I don't know, Sigma Pink, where you know they really go for it. It was
Yeah,
some
yeah.
leather stuff, and I don't even mean kinky leather. It was just something a bit different. That it was, you know what it was? We were going out in Belfast, and I was so bored of how boring everything was that I kind of just wanted to piss some people off. So I wanted to wear like stupid leather vests with spikes on it, and this was pre Gaga doing it. This was sort of how
Right,
this
okay.
happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was doing press for this theater show, and I was taking clothes back to a shop, and they saw the pieces that we made and asked who made them. And I was like, oh, well, me and my best friend. And they stocked our clothes on a Wednesday, and at like 3 p.m. that day, Gaga came in and bought them all.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who bought them?
Lady Gaga.
No. Who stocked them?
Oh, Machine A, you know, Stavros and
Oh,
all
okay,
that,
right. Yeah. And then, how
So,
did Lady Gaga see them?
well, they
Like
were in the
just,
shop. They were on.
just.
Yeah, but he basically took
Oh.
the whole collection and said, "We want to sell your clothes," and we gave them to him on a Wednesday morning, and you know, we just put them on the reels.
Uh-huh.
And she was in later that day, and I got a phone call, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so I guess I'm gonna do this now."
That's mental. I mean, that's like stars aligning, sort of like. I mean, when does that actually happen to people?
Well, listen, this is a weird thing. My entire life is a bunch of really surreal, weird situations like that. That you know, if you
Yeah,
get me drunk enough, I mean, I'm sort of not the storyteller, but I honestly don't think people believe half the things that have happened to me. I don't either. It's so weird.
that's crazy. So you did that with Lady Gaga. Then what happened after that? So
Mm.
then you're doing the clothes thing for a while, I assume.
Like maybe 4 or 5 years. We started a label
Okay.
that designed clothes, and it was crazy. You know, we didn't call it my name or my partner's name, business partner, because we were, I don't know, shy. I thought it was a lot more cool to have a label that was detached and people didn't know a lot about.
Yeah.
We did a lot of things. So that was 4 years of Gaga. We did, you know, world tours. We did her Born This Way. We did Marilyn Manson stuff. We did all those world tour things that I don't have a fashion training, so it was a bit like.
Was that when Nicola was there?
Nicola, yeah.
Yeah,
I've worked with Nicola exclusively for a long time, basically, yeah.
yeah.
And
But just
Anna
just for
yeah.
context, because Nicola was for the audience, Nicola was her creative director and sort of like the creative director of like her, because she had like a design house sort of thing, wasn't?
She did. She had she still does the House of Gaga. So basically,
Yeah.
Nicola was the fashion director. Matt Williams,
Fashion director. There you go.
Yeah, Matt Williams now, who runs Givenchy, was the creative director. I guess Nick Knight was a big part of it too.
There you go.
And yeah, so basically, my label was I worked side by side with Nicola's assistant Anna Trevelyan. She was my consultant.
And Anna is one of my very good friends, and I love her a lot,
right?
dearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very small world.
Yeah. Of course it is. She's a Barbie dream girl. So we had this amazing situation where this gorgeous girl who's super cool wanted to work with us, and of course I would never say no. And that was that experience. It went on for long enough. That's where the coffee addiction kicked in. Let's be honest. It was very coffee fueled and on the seat of your pants, never stopping. You know, we get a phone call saying we need a latex pregnancy suit for Saturday. You've got 12 hours to make it, and in those 12 hours, that accounts for the travel. We also have to get it to New York. Impossible deadlines, and we always came through. So that's where I learned, I guess, that the key to doing impossible stuff is very small baby steps. You know, don't talk yourself out of it to begin with. Just, you know, figure it out as you go, because there's always a solution.
Yeah, there is. So you did this amazing like costume sort of designing career, and then how did that jump into kind of like photography and film?
Do you want the real truth that I probably never told anyone before? Okay, basically my business partner overnight stole all the money. Yeah, I won't lie. Listen, if anyone's listening, you know, the shiny, beautiful artifice of people's worlds, it's never that perfect. You know, the truth was, you know, my grandfather died one night, and I was home in Belfast, away from the situation, and I woke up the next day, and basically, that happened. My best friend took all the money.
I'm confused how businesses work. Like, how can someone just take the money because you own the company together?
Well, put it this way, when you own a company together, especially with your best friend, I guess the key would be transparency and 50-50 access. So we both had full access to everything and complete trust, which was to protect each other, I guess.
Yeah.
That backfired. But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it was pretty rough. But I remember meeting with Gaga's manager, Wendy Morris, who I'm really, really close friends with, and she met me in Shoreditch. And I mean, you can imagine how I felt at the time. You know, we were doing so well, and I was feeling probably a bit too good about myself. And then the universe had to teach me a lesson. And she was just like, listen, this has happened, you know, to make you into the person that you need to be. This is going to teach you something, and then, you know, just keep going. So, I mean, my whole world exploded, and I didn't give up.
Why did I don't understand why he wanted. What did he want to take the money and put it into a different company? Like, why? I don't understand why someone would want to do that for a successful company. That's still it's in infancy, because only 4 or 5 years is still quite a short time for a business. Like, it's not like it was going for like 20 years or whatever.
I would say that I won't give you the reason that I do know that he did it for, because it was just personal. He was just a little bit lost at the time, and I wish him the best, and I love him to pieces. He's no longer no longer with us. He passed away last year, so I won't say anything horrible about him. Well, I mean,
No, but I mean, it's just someone passing away is never nice anyway. But
no, but it is. It's just. I guess there we go. There's the first example of like the horrible things happen, and they should never make you a tougher, harder person. If anything, they should make you more compassionate, more open, and more fluid. Because I didn't become more brusque or more abrupt or aggressive. If anything, it's sort of, I'd say, give me a whole new perspective that I really appreciate.
For sure. I mean, to have that situation thrusted upon anyone, you would definitely come out and have a totally new perspective of how to be with people, and also just, it's probably made you a bit more weary as well, and a bit more protective, I would say, in terms of your business adventures.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. But also what it did was it gave me a lot of faith, in the sense that I didn't stop, I mean, the next day I started a new company, literally the next day.
That's what I would do.
I did. And I didn't wallow, or I don't think I did. I think maybe there was about 3 or 4 months of not, head in the duvet, not really wanting to face things. But I came back with a plan, and that plan was Nick Knight and show studio. And I'd always loved photography. I'd studied it at school, and I love creating things, because I started off painting, fine art, theater, which people give me a really hard time about. I got a lot of, what do you do? You do a lot of things. What do you do? And I was really rude, and I didn't really like it, but I always never reacted to that, because I thought, you know what? That's the kind of attitude that people have before you do well, and then when you do well, you're celebrated. Yeah.
Literally, so, I was talking to someone recently about I won't name names, but someone recently who did this really famous film. And before this, I think everyone in his production company would be like, I don't know what he does, like trying to sell him to thing. And then he did like this big film, and then people just like, oh, and then everyone wanted him. And then he did another big film with Tom Hardy. And then people were just like, we really want him. But at the beginning, like, people just didn't know how to sell him. They didn't know how to sell him for commercials, that sort of thing.
Oh, it's crazy double standard. You get called a Renaissance man when you do well, but when you're, not finding your way. But when you're trying to express something, it can be a painting. Sometimes it has to be a painting. Sometimes it's a photograph. Sometimes it's on stage. Sometimes it's a piece of clothing that an artist wears. They're all different mediums for a creative person. So I don't really understand at all why anyone needs to, apart from, financial reasons and focusing on it and seeing what you're good at. But if you work hard at something, you should be able to be very good at anything you want to be good at,
I've always believed that. I mean, it's like the 10,000 hour experiment, isn't it? Like, if you do 10,000 hours of something, you become a master, or whatever it is. But again,
and I never studied, I never studied any of those things except acting, which, let's be honest, I mean, I'm not a movie star right now, and I don't want that attention. I'm the opposite, which is interesting. But I never studied photography, and I never studied fashion. So I'm a great example of, if you're curious enough, you can teach yourself anything, I think.
Well, it's true. I think it's all about the mindset, isn't it? And it's about even just having like the curiousness, and also having an artistic vision, and then the skills will just come like afterwards. Like, you just go on, as long as you have that kind of curiosity, and you have like sort of an imagination, then all you need to know is just the skills of how to make that imagination alive. And that's what you obviously did when you worked with like show studio at night.
Yeah, I think that the other thing in that ingredient that's really key, that sort of sets people apart, would be, I learned that you have to have a good eye, or learn to have a good eye for things, because it's okay to have imagination, and it's okay to have ability, but if you're not self-aware enough to know when you're crap, or to know when you're good, you're not going to go far. And I think, Nick Knight, I give him so much credit. He's like a father, mentor, genius that I learned from, and I was lucky enough to sit at his desk for 2 years. And it was 7 days a week. It was early morning, late at night. It was like being 18 years old again. And bear in mind, I was 31 at this stage, and I'd had a huge, pretty successful fashion career. So my ego got deleted overnight, and I went to making nice cups of tea and serving a real genius.
Yeah, I mean, really. It's so humbling though, isn't it? I mean, he is literally like an absolute genius in what he does. Like the things I see that him doing now, he's still revolutionary. He's still like way ahead of everyone else. He keeps like,
Well,
he keeps moving the marker for everyone, and it's amazing.
and that's the thing with Nick, is that, he essentially created the role that he gave me out of probably sheer kindness. God bless him. I was his first ever creative assistant. And what is a creative assistant? It's such a strange title that it can be brilliant or it can be nothing. It's really what you make of it. And, I went in and, how do you creatively suggest anything to Nick Knight?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So that's where the modesty comes in, because you listen, there's nothing that you can tell that man that he hasn't seen before. I would have ideas and he's like, oh, I did that in 1989. And I'm like, oh, cool, great. It was a good idea, but I'm about 20 years too late. And I was always a bit short. And I guess that the thing that he taught me was, he's an absolute madman in a good way. Like, he's obsessed with it. It's his entire life. And he said to me, and my best friend, John Emini, who we both adore Nick, and he said, listen, if you're not obsessed with this, and if this is not your life, and if you do not consistently think of this 24 hours a day, then there's no point in it being your career.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, do I have that? Am I going to be like that? And the funny thing is that it absolutely came true. I mean, my entire life is, I email myself my images at night and I play with them on my phone and trying to discover new things. And then the next day I look at all my disgusting experiments that aren't that great and delete half of them and keep one, and it never stops. And I have to sort of give Nick that credit, because he gives structure and permission to a lot of the things that I had in my head that were sort of bouncing off the crazy walls of my brain that made no sense. He streamlined it into a workflow, I guess would be the way.
Yeah, he has such an energy. I remember working with Britt Lloyd, his photography assistant, on a project, and I had to go into show studio, and we were doing like a briefing, and then he came into the meeting, and that was probably the second time I met him. And then he actually spoke to me, and then he was asking like questions and stuff. And I was a bit like, I don't know how to respond, because it's Nick Knight. I was like, how can you have a really in-depth, like, creative conversation with the man who is like so ahead of, like, and made like people push things a lot more forward in terms of filmography, in terms of like photography, everything. I think for the last like 6 minutes we've just been talking about how much we love Lit Night. So,
well, I mean, he let's be honest. For me, he's a huge crossroad, and I know Britt was an intern at the time when I was assisting, and she came in and she was very sweet and quiet and sat in the corner, and she's sweet, so that's nice. But the next thing was
she's a powerhouse as well. I love her. She's very, very good.
At the time she was very quiet, and I don't remember her taking many photographs. So this is a whole revelation now. There's this career that's established, and I'm like, girl, go for it. Like, go do your thing. Yeah.
It's sorry, you go ahead.
No, yeah, but then the thing with, just not to ramble on, but yeah, that was hard work. That was exciting. But then when I was with Nick, this sort of crazy English lady came into the studio one day that I sort of fell in love with a little bit. And that was the next crossroad. Like, I don't even know what you would say. Like, I skim along with these magical people that, yes, Nick's a genius and he's a great figure, but he's also a man that's got a great edge to him that I don't know, had a alchemy with. And that's the bottom line. It wasn't an accident. So we met for a reason, had this interesting relationship, and then I pinged off in the direction of this wonderful woman called Amanda Harlick, who I didn't know anything about at the time. I just thought she was a crazy English lady, and I loved her. I thought she was batshit crazy, gorgeous, fun, electric. I didn't know that she was, first of all, a lady, a real one. I thought maybe that was like a Lady Gaga title or something, so I wasn't sure. I hope she's not listening. And I didn't know that, she basically started working with John Galliano at the beginning, and she was Karl Lagerfeld's muse. I knew none of this stuff. I just knew that I wanted to know her. And we were like kids at art class, at the back of the class, gossiping every 2 minutes. And I would always try and steal her into the kitchen. And from the first minute we met, we became, I don't know, some kind of soulmates, conspirators, which is very, very lucky for me.
And so were you? And then so you were with Nick, and then you were with her. And then when was the point that you kind of made that decision? It was like, okay, I need to do it by myself. I need to stand on my own 2 legs and do my own thing.
Well, it actually became really apparent while working with Amanda in Paris with Carl, because we'd done some really great work, and I was, I would soundboard things with her and assist her in the same way I did with Nick. But when we were with Carl in Paris, I was asked to shoot a lot of behind the scenes sometimes for View magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a bit too passionate about it. I started to do that thing where the behind the scenes weren't really behind the scenes. I was kind of like shooting my own portraits of Kendall Jenner in between takes, and they were really nice. But I just got so obsessed with it that when I was assisting, I think for the last 6 months, I had my camera with me the whole time.
Mm.
And I remember Carl saying, "Oh, you want to be a photographer?" And he got like about 7 bags of these huge Chanel bags and filled them with 120 film that he had left over from, I don't know, 20 years of campaigns that he hadn't used. And he gave them to me and he goes, "You should take photographs." And I was like, "What?" Like, I still
That's
have some upstairs.
amazing.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I think Amanda saw it too. She saw an assistant get less interested with doing the assistant job. And she was like, "Right, you're an artist. You need to go and focus on this." And she guided me through all that.
I mean, what a journey you've had. I mean, with all these amazing names and stuff. And so that obviously led you on to kind of going into the fashion world and doing the photography, and you've worked with some amazing kind of performers like Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Nicki Minaj. How did that kind of translate? Because obviously you already had the kind of career with Lady Gaga. I'm assuming it was kind of like a stepping step into the next sort of like realm with all the other kind of music artists and stuff. And then obviously with Marilyn Manson, which obviously is amazing as well.
Well, yeah, it's that thing of, I don't know, I'm sure everyone is the same, and you are, and anyone listening, is that, when you're a kid or you're a teenager and you're listening to music or you're watching a movie and you're like, I think that person would be like my best friend. I mean, you're probably kidding yourself a little bit, but there's some people that are famous that you just want to get to know, and Marilyn Manson was one of them for me.
Mine's Chris Martin from Coldplay.
Oh wow!
Mine's
that so much about you.
Yeah, I know. I just think Chris Martin's amazing. I'm a massive fan of Coldplay, and everyone shuns me, and I'm like, I love Coldplay so much. Like, I absolutely love them for years. Anyway, Karen, back to your story.
I'm just going to judge you silently and answer the question. Basically, I basically texted his ex-wife, Dita Von Teese, and I was like, "Listen, I really like Manson, obviously. I'm not saying, give me a gold ticket or I don't know, a job. What I'm saying is show him my work. I think it's good enough for his attention. If it's not, ignore this." It was really a case of, if you like what I do, call me. If you don't, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It was an opportunity to work with him. And then his manager called me like 2 hours later and was like, "Don't call him Brian. Only the police and his father call him that." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, okay, cool." All right. And started to sweat a little bit. I was like, "Oh." And he flew to London and we had a meeting and hit it off very instantly. And he's like a brother to me. So he is a poet and a very, very smart, sensitive, what's the word? I think he comes off as completely eccentric at times, but if you've been around Gaga and Nick Knight and those people, you're able to decode the fact that he's not eccentric. He's just thinking 7 things at once, and you have to keep up. And if you keep up with those 7 things, they do connect when you go home and think about it. But it's a lot of information that comes at you, which you can tell he's had a very illustrious creative career. So his mind is on different levels.
Yeah, I remember working with Paul Smith for his Pity of Money show. And I remember him coming into like pre-meeting, and literally the same thing. He would have like 8 ideas that were so separate, but then if you listened, they all connected. And there was a guy next to him who was this kind of right-hand man called Sean, who was kind of like depicting his mind at the same time, and then was translating it into what I needed to know. And I was just like, I was so blasted away that he just literally was like, I was like, where's all this coming from? He just was on another level, and I can totally relate to this.
Yeah, so that's why we got on, and also I'm not very interested in fame, or I guess that's just it, full stop. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm adjacent to someone really well known and I'd get really high off it, because I would never pander to their, I don't know, I wouldn't just agree with them because they were famous. I would give them, if anything, more of a hard time and challenge them a lot more, because I'd be like, why? Like, you can't do that. That's ugly. Like, just because you say you want to do it doesn't mean you should do it,
Exactly.
And we had this great honest sort of relationship, and I got the nickname Sassy Pants because I argue back all the time.
But that's good though, because I think a lot of these people, even probably the days of like Michael Jackson, where he was so famous, like people just didn't want to say no or don't want to question that. And I think those people need that kind of like thing, because I think everyone that has been, everyone that I've heard on kind of podcasts and all these famous actors and that sort of thing, throwish on the idea of conflict and like challenge, because if not, they're getting yeses all the time, and they're just like, well,
let me tell you,
where's the process?
It's like all good things come from friction, right? We all need it in life, and it's important. And you know, I've learned to be a bit more elegant and eloquent with it the older I've got. You know, I think at first maybe it seemed a bit oafish and misplaced at times, but now it's a little bit more curated and polite, shall we say? You know, but it's important. It's important to challenge people, because at that level, yeah, there's so many people agreeing, and that just makes me allergic to that. I'm not very good with that. You know, I'm the first person to say hello and have a chat, and I don't care if it's a superstar or not at all. No one makes me nervous really at all, except who makes me nervous? No one yet that I've met anyway.
I think the only person who would make me nervous would probably be Beyonce. I think that's the only person. Like, period.
I think that she's so smart and she listens, that she'd be a joy. I think that, you know, working directly, I worked with Bea Ackerland at the time, so I wasn't working directly with Beyonce. So I think that she's such an open artist and she listens, and I think that's a key. And the other thing is, all the people I've mentioned are really nice people. They're the nicest. None of them have been, you know, deliberately mean. Some of them have been a bit rough, but like, good for them. But I mean that, you know, the people that get to that level, you realize why they get to that level. It's because they're kind, they're open, they listen, and there's some great level of hard work, you know. And then you go, oh, that's why you're famous or a legend, or you see it. Because with Carl especially, Carl was, I mean, he's a working class kid, and the funny thing is that the external perception of him was so luxury and detached and elite, but the reality was he was the working class, witty, acidic, magical fairy godmother. You know what I mean? Like, he would have such a laugh with you. He wasn't untouchable. You know, he liked me, and we would have the couture, or not all Chanel, but everything before a shoot. And he would go through each piece and like, what do you think of this? And I just remember thinking, why is nobody recording this? This is such a, you should have your own reality show. He was so watchable and listenable and quotable. And to be honest, I feel like fashion's changed a lot since he passed away. I feel like there's something missing in Paris a bit, and maybe it's him. So
probably is him.
I mean,
but he was the sort of like, he still is the legendary thing that kind of infused into the Paris culture as well. So I totally agree with you. But what
big glamorous daydream that sort of doesn't exist anymore. I mean, those nights in Paris were absolutely unreal, you know.
I know. And so how, because obviously I've talked to someone else on our podcast, and we all work with very famous people, and have this very from the outside, when you talk to normal people who don't work in the arts, it's all very lavish and very large and great and that sort of thing. But obviously behind the mask, it's not as glamorous as it possibly can be. How do you differentiate? What's the word? How do you split your time mentally from jumping into that world to then go back into what reality is?
Let me tell you something. The difference is very real, and the difference is vast and huge. I feel like, I think people think that me, I don't even think anyone thinks about me, but if it's in my position, or anyone that does those creative things, you know, that is connected with a bit of glamour, I think their impression is that I walk into a set that looks really cool and it's exciting and there's all these beautiful people and the music's on and it's just this big party. And it's like, no, 90% of my life is stressing over emails before that moment, for that moment to work. It's basically me having nervous breakdowns because I care so much and pretending like I don't. And then, you know, I'd say for me, I'm lucky that I don't live in it, because, you know, Amanda has a wonderful home in Shropshire and she separates herself from Paris and London and her fashion life by going back to her farm. And I learned that that's what I wanted. So I did that. So basically my preparation is, sorry, excuse me. That's not a COVID cough. That's a...
It's all right, don't worry.
Stop smoking cough. Basically, is getting ready for traveling, because I basically literally fly in for work. So it's very literal entering for me. Like I pack my bag and my kit because I travel with all my cameras and I travel with all my lights. I don't usually hire a lot of stuff. And you know, I get ready for it, and I keep all my energy to, you know, to give to the person that I'm photographing, because when I come home, I don't see people. I'm very antisocial. I really don't. I don't go to bars. I don't drink at all, not for any moral reason, just because my drug is the job, you know.
Yeah.
And and I sit and I read books. I watch every film without any pretension. I don't want anyone. I hate it when people are like, "Oh, my favorite film's Tarkovsky," and they're all, or my favorite photographer's Ansel Adams, and you're like, "Good for you." I mean, my favorite film's Death Becomes Her.
Love that.
You know, you don't need to be, you know, pretentious to be, you know, cool. So it's like, I watch everything without judgment, and it usually leads to questions that I want answered. So I guess that to explain, the other 90% of my existence is passion and curiosity for stuff. So what's something lately I've been interested in? I'm very obsessed with NASA.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I get obsessed with it.
Have you watched that Netflix series, the aliens, and about our past and all that sort of thing? Oh my God. Yeah. I'm trying to find someone who's also obsessed about this as I am, because it took, for context, this Netflix series talks about the history before Jesus Christ, and how what we talk about as gods in quotation is actually not gods, and what they're talking about is people coming down from the sky. And it's written in stone in these sacred places that these things, people, gods, came down from the sky to help them. And so we call them gods, but actually they're not gods. They're just people that potentially might look like us that have come down. And so I'm absolutely obsessed about it, because it predates before Jesus Christ. It's like 200 AD, and they all believe, and this is also about talking about the stories of the Bible, talking about how basically like the Garden of Eden is like an actual place. It's not a made-up place. It exists near off the kind of rivers of Syria. And so I basically, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but I absolutely love it.
Are you a Scientologist? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not a Scientologist. I'm very much spiritual, but I believe that there's more than what I think is presented in front of us. It's all stories. It's all like Chinese whispers and stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm from Belfast, so I'm very not anti-religion, but I don't really like anything that fragments people. And I believe that religion really has been a subject that has fragmented a lot of good things in the world. You know, I believe that there are common codes between, you know, Catholicism and Buddhism and Judaism. And I think that when you break down the basic lessons, that's what I think your code should be. You know, I don't really know if I'm sure there was a really lovely man with great hair called Jesus, but I also respect everybody else's religion, where I'm like, I think it all comes from an essential seed that was planted. Don't know where, don't know when, but, you know, don't be a dick, don't kill people, put out good vibes, drink your coffee, don't be an asshole.
Hashtag good vibes only. That's it. That's what Jesus was doing.
Basically, you know, it's like something, you know, it's Kris Jenner. It's too blessed to be stressed. Just get on with your life and be good. And, you know, I do believe that when you're negative, that it sticks to you like tar, and you carry that around with you. And then you know, you pay for that negativity, which is actually, this ties in nicely, because I think this is what you asked me about an hour ago and I didn't answer you, which is everything I've ever did up until this point has been almost perfectly a part of the puzzle. You know, if I'm shooting a photograph, I look at the lighting in a way that I used to be obsessed with Impressionism. I'm such a boring kid. It's not the coolest movement, but I loved light. I loved Vermeer, and I loved all those things in, you know, Renaissance. And that educated my photography sort of knowledge. And then theater again, influenced how I deal with models and actors and how I direct them, because I know all the exercises and all the things to do to relax. So if someone's looking very tense, I get them to do a warm up with me, or I get them to shake it off, and no one's ever stuck or uncomfortable with me. And I think that I've seen some photographers that hold the camera and look at the subject and wait for something to happen, and it's horrible. It's like pressure.
Or they hire me. and the in
Or they
between
hire
person.
you, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, what a luxury. I mean, having someone doing movement direction I would love to be able to do that, because as a side note, I'm obsessed with dance and movement and modern dance, and I think it's beautiful. But you know, I'm really much like, listen, you're already existing in front of the camera. You've done your job. It's my job to guide you through what I see, because you can't see yourself. So it's up to me. It's on my back. So I want them to feel like, you just let go and trust me, and, you know, take a jump off the cliff and let's go on a journey. And, you know, I won't ever take advantage of that trust and make someone look ugly or vulnerable, you know.
Of course, of course. And so as we're sort of like wrapping up this episode, which obviously would want to do, because I'm obviously obsessed about you right now, and I absolutely love everything you're saying.
I don't even know how you find me. I feel like anyone that's ever heard of me probably had to deep dive on the internet for about 10 years. I don't know. I feel like the janitor. Maybe it's because I disappear back to Ireland. I still feel like a student that doesn't know anything.
Maybe, but so I would like to know, so as we come to an end, what we always do on the show is do a give back, and our audiences really love this, because it's a little kind of something that gives you an impression about the person and how they kind of, I don't know, how they are inspired by the things around them. And so what I would love to know is, what would be the one thing, it might be a mantra, a film, or anything like that, or the way that you might live your life, that we give back to an audience that might inspire them in some way.
Well, for me, it would be not necessarily in life, but in work. And well, I guess my life is work. So it is that. Don't be too pleased with yourself.
Oh, good one.
You know, like, listen, I'm the exact opposite. I don't like any of my work. I know I get it to the level where I'm pleased with it, but then the day after I'm completely like, oh, I could have done better. And I'm not entirely pleased. And then if you look at any recent work that I've done, if anyone's smart enough or cares enough, you'll always see that the next thing is a direct answer to the previous thing. Like it is, because something annoys me about it. Like I did a Halpern shoot that was very colorful and bright, and most people know me for being a bit more dark, and they were like, oh, where's your dark sensibility? So then the next shoot was a Renaissance inspired shoot that I did in Italy. And you know, again, just be curious. Don't be pleased by your work too soon. Always push it, and be very curious. Just a side note, just a ramble about a shoot I did in Milan, was because I'm obsessed with art and Renaissance and all those techniques from many years ago, I'm very anti-retouch. So all my work is done in camera, just to say that, because that's something I am proud of, is like, it's not retouched for 6 weeks. That's all my original work. I don't have a retoucher or someone that comes in. So when I worked in Milan, I found out the general 3 key painting rules that were used in Renaissance, which I knew already. I'm not going to try and pronounce them because I'm too Irish, but it's basically, obviously, chiaroscuro, the light defines the dark. So negative space is important. That's one thing that everybody knows. Another thing is this painting technique called, I think it's sfumato. I can't pronounce it. It's S-F-U-T-A-O. And it's basically used when Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. He made the shadows and definitions on the face a little bit blurred to mimic what the actual eye sees. So it's not as graphic and defined. So I photograph using those painterly techniques. I use a soft focus, I use directional light, and I try and mimic what the painter would do, but in a lens, which isn't very modern. It's not very Nick Knight, but it's where my passion comes from, which is,
there you go,
stay open and creative.
There you go. I'll look at your work with an entirely different light now. Now I know you don't have post-production and you don't have a retoucher, which blows our mind, because I've seen the Helping one, and I'm like, because there's like a smudgy thing in the background, and I'm like, that's really fascinating.
Oh, I love that, because that was a smudgy thing. You should tag Shona Heath, the genius set designer that works with Tim Walker, basically hand painted that smudge.
I love it. I just love it because it's so like sort of like arty in the background. And there was the Versace campaign for there was a denim campaign. It was done by Map Projects, which we had the chief creative officer on our podcast recently, and it was a beautiful girl sitting down, but behind her was like this like blue kind of canvas washy thing. And I absolutely love that, when fashion can really merge with art and design and painting, and it creates an entirely new thing. So that for me, the Harper one was really, really great. I really loved that shoot.
Yeah, that's it. That's that curiosity. So you'll see, like, the last thing I did was quite colorful, and already, I'm actually, I've got a meeting right after this for the next cover I'm shooting, and I'm almost certain it's black and white because I'm sick of color so much already.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on 360 yourself. It's been really, really fascinating. I want to thank you for being so honest and authentic in your interview with me.
Well, just for anybody listening, listen, you know, Instagram and the whole world is curated. People's stories are not as easy, they're not as glamorous, and they're not as smooth as you think. There's a lot of depression, there's a lot of struggle and sweat and tears. And if you're feeling like it's impossible, it's because it is. That's why not everybody does it. But just keep going. You can't give up. That's just it.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving me time to ramble. I appreciate it.